good morning, good afternoon, good night. However you're watching, wherever you're watching, however you're listening, wherever you're listening, it is the Bet Online Salute Detroit podcast, and it's Thursday. And like we said, Thursdays, we're going to try to have a special guest. And we have a special guest today. We have our man from Twitter. You guys know him as El Chicano. We just learned that he's Steven. Steven, El Chicano, whatever you want to go by. Welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
What's up, fellas? Thank you for having me. Just like everybody else, diehard USC fan. Started think about in high school. I think that's when, for me at least, Reggie Bush, Pete Carroll, I think like a lot of people, that's kind of how I became a big fan. And I followed it, pretty just a high school kid, but then as I got older, like a young adult, I started following more hardcore, like the recruiting and some of the message board stuff and sites like that. I think probably the first year where I got like really, really deep into it was at the 2008 team when they had, I think, Sanchez, and they had that sick defense, Malaluga, Clay Matthews, Brian Cushing. Like, that's probably when I started like really, really becoming a hardcore fan, so to say.
You're forgetting a lot of people off that team. Taylor Mays.
That's how deep it was. That's how deep that team was, right?
Taylor
Al
Mays,
Rowe.
Kevin Ellison, Alfred Rowe.
Yeah. Taylor Mays.
Who was the 2008 team? Yeah. Oh, Cedric wasn't on the team. He was gone already by then. That was going to bring me down back memory lane. Joe McKnight, Stephon Johnson, David Osbury, Anthony McCoy. We could just start naming. I can name my whole freshman class. Butch Lewis. But yeah, that's great. And perfect timing. Never late. Always on time. Never late, always on time. He knows when to show up. He's the man who got his undergrad from USC. Just had to clear that up. Undergrad from USC, Trojan at heart. It's the madman, Jamal Magny. How are you doing today, Jamal?
Doing well, Coach. Always a pleasure, and so thrilled to have our very special guest. El Chicano, great to meet you, my friend. The man behind all of the capital letters. The man, the myth, and the capital letter legend.
There we go.
What's up, man?
We can't forget our founder, the man who put this all together 4 years ago, Ryan Dairoot. How are you doing, Ryan?
What's happening? All good. Happy to all be here. And yeah, Steven, El Chicano, thanks for joining us. Excited to get into the state of the program and kind of your thoughts on what this offseason has looked like thus far. So thanks for hanging out. And Coach, always good to see you, my friend. How are you doing? How are you today?
I'm actually doing good. I am doing good. Work sucked last week, and then this week dragged, but everything at work is actually going right. So it's just one of those things. It's like, let me knock on wood, because tomorrow could just be a complete chaos because it's supposed to rain and we got to deal with some stuff with the rain. But for now, we're doing really good and everything's good. I have no complaints. Just moving forward, keep pushing forward, and we're gonna keep this thing rolling. Just real brief. Thursdays, man, we want to bring a lot of guests on Thursdays. We talked about this. I don't know if you guys know this. So Thursday's going to be a lot of our guest days. If you want to jump on, hit us up in our DM, USC_LAFB on Twitter/X. Did I get that right, Ryan?
Yeah, well done.
I always mess them up, Steven. So just excuse me. I mess everything up. But hit our DMs. We'll arrange something for you to have on. So far, right now, we're really loaded too. And Steven, we appreciate you going on. We're rolling to this. So you talked about how you got into USC football and you became a fan in that 2008 class. So first question I'm going to ask you, do you just keep your cap locks on when you send your tweets out? Because the caps always come in. Also, are you willing to reveal your source?
The first part, hey man, it works, right? It works.
It does. Yeah.
And the source is not a source if you reveal it, right?
There you go. There you go. No, just messing around with you. But So you talked about your love for USC. Have you came down to any of the games? I know you live up in the Central Coast area. Do you come down for any games or anything like that?
Yeah. So I was just at the Holiday Bowl, which was a good one to go to.
Oh, we were there too.
Yeah, and down in San Diego, like probably I made it there pretty good, like 4.5 hours. The way back was brutal. The next day, but whatever. But I've got two sons, and so I try to start the tradition, of taking them at least once or twice a year, make the little drive. So it's worth it, and tickets aren't too expensive, So we usually make it down to a couple games. I went down to USC and Utah also.
Oh, that was a good one.
Yeah. I took my girlfriend. She had never been to a football game, so we went down there, and that was a good one. Even though we lost, that was a
heartbreaker.
Yeah, heartbreaker. But it was a good game. It sucks to lose like that, but yeah. And then the Holiday Bowl, obviously, that was a. I'll be honest. I thought USC was probably going to get their butts kicked. The way the season had ended, I think a lot of people thought the same thing. And to my surprise, they even with all the departures and how many scholarship players did they have? Like 50 or something. I don't know, but even Miller Moss surprised I think a lot of people because you just weren't sure what to make of him, right? Like he's a 4-star out of modern days, so it's like he has the talent, but then again, if you haven't played a game in I think almost 3 seasons, like started, it's like how can you expect that guy to go out and freaking throw 6 touchdowns?
Yeah. Absolutely.
I just want to let you know, Chicano, there was one guy who always believed in Miller Moss, and I said Miller Moss is going to be okay. I won't say his name, Alfred Rowe, but I knew Miller Moss would be good, but no, that is good. I'm gonna ask you one more question. I'll pass it on to Ryan and Jamal to throw some questions at you. We could just chop it up. My question is: so, what is your most favorite USC moment? Whether you watched it on TV, live, or in person. Live and in person is the same thing. Either TV or in person. What's your moment that you always remember? Like, man, I was there, or man, I remember exactly what I was doing on that day when I was watching it.
Okay, so I'll say I've got one in particular, but I'll say 2 real quick. Okay, so one is I think it was at my first game ever was USC versus Stanford when Coach O took over. Yeah, if you guys remember that game, and I think Ravens ended it with the interception, and I think Stanford was ranked top 5 or something like that. So I was at the game, and it was for my brother's birthday. We went, so that was probably the best moment. Like as a fan, that was cool to get that win. And Coach O, like everybody, all the Trojan fans were riding with them, right? Like he really did his thing. Those when he took over for Lane Kiffin, and which is it's stays with me because. Trip out on this is that I actually met Coach O. He was down in this area recruiting a player, believe it or not. I was in the Pismo Beach area. We have a Nike outlet store, and I was like, I was with my son, and I'm like, I turned around, and I was like, man, that looks like a USC coach. That looks like Coach O. And I turned around again, and I was like, I was kind of weirded out. I was like, man, do I ask him or not? I don't want to look like a fool. I was like, hey, you're USC, you're Coach O, right? And you know how he talks. Oh, nice to meet you. This and that. I was like, man, it was so. I don't know.
Tigers.
Yeah. I don't know what year that was. Like whatever year he was under Lane Kiffin. I'm not sure exactly what year that was. But you know what? And that was not before, but I don't know if it was before cell phone cameras were a thing, or I didn't have mine on me. I don't know why, but I didn't get a picture or nothing. That kind of that's a memory I wish I could have. At least got a picture with him, because he went on to win a championship with LSU and all that. Like, so that's why I say I kind of connect those 2 things. Like, it was cool to be at that game, and then also, to meet him.
El Chicano, I got to ask you before you give the second kind of or other moments. Yes. I was there that game as well. That was 2013, and it was the only time. Since 2001 that USC has ever rushed the field in the Coliseum. And so
I remember that game now.
You know what? I didn't rush the field. No. And looking back, I probably should have, but
missed opportunity.
Missed opportunity. Yeah, because like I said, I didn't know that was the only time they had done it. But what's funny you bring that up is that I remember, I forgot which game it was. It was a recent game, and I think I even said something on Twitter like we were gonna pull the upset, or we did. I can't recall what game it was. I was like, I even said on Twitter like, hey, don't rush the field. That we're USC. We don't do that. Like you're like I don't know if it was against I don't know, Washington or Utah. It might have been last year or this year. I'm not sure when. But I was like, no, my thing is, hey, we're USC. We don't do that. And, you kind of, not that it's classless, but, hey, like, you're USC. You're freaking supposed to beat Utah. You're supposed to beat Washington, right? Even if they're having good seasons, like, when USC is on point, you're supposed to beat those teams. Or, even Oregon, I know they're up right now, but at least that's how I feel, like, hey, you're supposed to take care of business,
Yeah. I will tell you this. I will tell you my memory, and I'll pass it to Ryan or Jamal, whoever wants to go first. They can play rock, paper, scissors right now while I tell them my memory. My memory is from my senior year of high school, right? It was my senior year of high school. We played Bellevue, Washington on that Friday. We came back that morning, ended up going in the middle of the day. We went to a game at the Coliseum, and it won that running back the Heisman Trophy, and that was Fresno State versus USC when Reggie Bush just went off. I remember that game. And that's when Erin Andrews was just getting started, and she was just doing beat reporting for USC, and she was doing high school games. So she knew who I was exactly. And she was like, you're at the game? Like, you guys just got back. I was like, she was like, go home and go to sleep. I was like, I'm glad I didn't go home and go to sleep because I missed probably one of the best performances, like, in that time on the Coliseum field. Like, that was like, I remember that. Like, first, I sat in the end zone where the players came out, about mid-row, where that was one of the best games that I've ever seen with my eyes, like, in person. And I played with some good people. So that one's on the top. So who's going to go first with the question, Ryan or Jamal?
I got one quick.
Go ahead.
Steven, so looking at this year, when I really started, seeing you and seeing your tweets was during, the defensive coordinator hiring process and, that whole kind of fun, all the speculation and rumors. And so just kind of how fun was that for you? I feel like that was, it was a fun time. Maybe it wasn't fun for you. Maybe you can say it that way, but there was so much conversation on Twitter and everywhere just about who the next DC was going to be. Was it going to be Jim Leonard, all these guys? So just what was that time like for you? And then B, what ultimately taking it back to football, like what's your thought on D'Anton Lynn and this defensive staff now that Lincoln Riley has put together?
Yeah, that was a crazy time, right? Like nobody it was you would want to say it seemed inevitable that Coach Grinch was going to be let go, right? But nobody knew exactly when that was going to happen, right? So it was kind of and then when he got let go, it was like who's gonna take over? You heard a lot of these names, Jim Leonard. You had I think the guy from Mississippi State. Don't recall his name, but you had a couple different names in the mix, right? And it's when Coach Lynn got hired, like it kind of came out of left field, right? Like I don't that wasn't a name you were really hearing. Now as far as Coach Lynn, like the only knock you can say on him is that he only did it for one season. But that was a big turnaround from I don't know what they were ranked before, but I think they were top 20 or around there in his first season. And I even think, you guys could correct me, but I don't even think he had a chance to recruit any players. Like I think he came in late, right? I don't know if you guys recall that, but so he didn't get a chance to kind of handpick a lot of the, I think high school, maybe portal guys or whatever, but he turned that UCLA defense around really, really quick, So I think if a lot of USC fans are expecting that same turnaround this year with the staff, and I think the staff is probably second to none. Obviously I'm a USC fan, whatever. Like might be a little biased, but you've got guys Belk, who was Alabama, wanted him. Like, come on, enough said there. Entz was a head coach, and now he's a position coach. Like, and then you got the Henderson from the Rams. Like, I don't know how you can get any better as far as a D-line coach. And then I think keeping Nua was big also because I think, one, you got to keep the Polynesian pipeline. You got to keep that going. In Southern California, like, there's a lot of big boys that you're going to get that are Polynesian. I think it's important to have somebody like that still on the staff. So I think keeping Nua around was very good. Now, to say that USC is going to have a top 20 defense, I mean, I'll let you guys go after this. I'm going to hesitate a little bit. I think if you can get that defense around 40 to 50, I think that's good enough to compete in the Big Ten. That's good enough to make the playoffs. Maybe make the championship game because, the offense is going to be rolling. They're going to put up a bunch of points regardless. That's one thing Lincoln Riley's offenses are always going to do is put up points. You just need a serviceable defense. Doesn't mean that USC is going to settle for that. I think eventually they want to get top 20 or whatever. But I think realistically right now I could see around the 40 to 50 range, something like that. I still think like they did pretty good in the portal, but like I would say like Ramsey, I think that guy is probably the best player on defense that they got in the portal, my opinion. Like that guy's I think he's only a sophomore too, right? Redshirt sophomore. So that's the type of player talent where you're like, man, he's probably all conference type of player. The other guys were good players also, but that's the guy who stands out. I still think you probably need a couple more defensive linemen, someone to back up the big nose tackle to back up Rakes, and then who backs up Bear Alexander. I'll pass it on to you guys after that, but you might say Elijah Hughes, or is he going to be more on the edge? I'll pass it on to you guys, but that's kind of my overall take. I think the talent levels, gotten a little bit better, but I think around 40 to 50 range is what I'm expecting first year under Coach Lynn.
El Chicano, I mean, great analysis. I'll follow up with two questions of my own here. One is, what is your realistic expectation for this team in 2024 now that a lot of the roster has been solidified? Obviously, there's one more kind of transfer portal window, but I think we've reached critical mass. So given this roster construction, what is an expectation reasonably for 24, kind of record-wise, where they finish, ranking-wise, playoff, not playoff? Do they win a playoff game or not? What does that look like in 24? And then B, who are you expecting as kind of one breakout player on offense and one breakout player on defense in 24?
Okay, so we were just 7-5. I think
8-5, right?
8-5 with the bowl win. I think it's a tough schedule. I'll say 9-3, 8-4. Now, if you say I know some fans are going to be like 8-4. What? Now, to me though, it's how you compete and how you win those games. If you get to 9-3, best case scenario 10-2. I say worst case scenario 8-4, but somewhere around there, 9 wins, 8 or 9 wins. It's just still a lot. The roster still could add some good pieces, So right now with that tough schedule, I think Michigan's going to be down though. I think Michigan's going to be a little bit down. Like, you don't know if Harbaugh's going to be there or not. LSU is going to be tough again. So is Notre Dame. I mean, the schedule's it's a brutal schedule, but I'll say 9-3. You got a gun to my head. I'll say 9-3. Breakout players. I was just thinking about this, and from the receivers, you know what? I'm gonna say who I think is gonna be our leading receiver next season. Not Zachariah Branch, not Deuce Robinson. I like Jacoby Lane.
El Chicano.
There you go, man.
I mean,
there you go, man.
Great minds think alike, my friend. That's what I've been saying on the show here,
And I think Deuce Robinson has the talent, but I think I really like what I saw from Lane. But I think Deuce, he had a couple of drops or a couple of plays where you're just like, man, you really have to make those plays, especially in which game was it? He had it was a close game. I think maybe Washington or something.
Yeah,
like
it was that Washington game. Yeah, maybe even Utah. Yeah.
Utah, yeah, like man, like you really need to make those plays and to you really have to make those plays, and the great players do. He's just a freshman. Obviously, you can clean things up like that, but Lane for not getting as much, he got some snaps, but not as much run. And then that last game in the Holiday Bowl, he freaking impressed me, man. And I think he's gonna be, Branch stud, obviously, but I still need to see from Branch. You'll get more opportunities, but can you turn from a great returner to a great receiver? That's the question, right? He was All-American as a returner, not as a receiver. Now, obviously, he had guys in front of him. He might fill in that Tahj Washington spot, So that's who would be my breakout guy on offense, Jacoby Lane.
Man, El Chicano, you sounding like Jalen Ramsey a couple of years ago when he had to go guard Tyreek Hill. He's like, what's the big deal here? I'm going up against an all-pro returner, not an all-pro receiver. I love that.
Before you continue, Chicano, I want to thank everybody from the Minor 1090 for tuning in and listening. If you want to go and make some extra cash to get your summer ready, go to underdogfantasy.com. It's on the Google Play and the App Store. Put in USC LAFB and we'll match up to $100. Thank you guys once again for listening. Thanks to your guest El Chicano. Go ahead, Stephen. Finish.
Yeah. No, just to add on to that real quick. Yeah, no, I have no doubts. Branch will be that, no doubts. Like he's a stud.
No, but I hear you. He's got to prove it. Yep.
Yeah, he's got to prove it. But I like Lane as far as taking over as the number one guy. And on defense, how about Elijah Hughes? But check this out. He got some run. He has a quick first step. And if you're bringing in the Rams D-line Coach Henderson, that's what you bring a coach like that in for, right? To develop that talent that you already have on the roster, So that's a guy I think. I want to see what he can do with the new coach, with the new D-line coach, with the new scheme. Like, I think the coaches obviously like him because he got a lot of snaps as a freshman. So I that's the guy. I think that's. I think it's critical. He's my breakout player, but I think it's critical that a guy like that has a big season because he's a young guy, right? You don't need to always bring in guys from the portal. Develop the talent you have, and let this guy be a stud. So those would be my two breakout players for next season.
I will say this. I want to rebuttal to that. I think there's a little bit too much anticipation for the Big Ten, and people don't realize the Big Ten is really top heavy, right? It's Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, and then the rest of them are just there. You know what I mean? And we drew Penn State and Michigan. I think going to the Big House is going to be an issue, but like you said, you don't know what's going to happen when that coaching change happens and how many people is going to hit the February portal. LSU, I'm not afraid of. LSU had the same record as us last year. Brian Kelly hasn't really figured it out there. And they're losing their Heisman Trophy winning quarterback. You know what I mean? So I don't think the season, and I do this all the time, Jamal hates me for this, but I don't think the season's going to go as bad as people think. I think we may take some blows, but I think we'll still be good enough to get a six seed in the college football playoff, or maybe 8 to 6 is about where we should be in the college football playoff. Like, you got here's the advantage that SC had. They played a spring game against a different team, and nobody was ever able to do that. Now they're showing that they have 4 weapons and you can't cover them all. Now with Deuce Robinson, and I've been saying this all the time, I don't think Deuce Robinson's going to come back. I think Deuce Robinson, after he plays his baseball season and end up being really well in baseball, he's going to go stick to baseball. That's just my opinion. And I want him to do that so he could save his body and make a lot of money and play pro sports until he's in his 40s. So that's me giving him advice on how to play for a long time and make a whole bunch of money. But that receiver room is really loaded. The quarterback room just got better. I think they need to get one more. And with Juju reclassifying, which we're going to talk about a little bit later, I think there's more depth in the quarterback room now. I think also by them going to a 4 down, and Ryan, I need you to help me out with this. The freshman linebacker that was playing the stand-up end,
Braylan Shelby.
Shelby is now going to be a true linebacker off the line of scrimmage. That's the guy I think is going to have the breakout year. I think he's going to be the defensive guy that steps up like, whoa, because the flashes he showed as a freshman and he could run, it's like, okay, that's going to be really good.
Yeah, just don't have him covering wheel routes out of the back.
Yeah, that's the issue too. But neither here nor there, we don't have to worry about that. But I think the season's going to be a lot better. And then I can't tell you, are we going to win more than one playoff game? I don't know that because it's all based on draw and matchup. That's so far down the line. But I do see them right now with this roster in the college football playoff. I don't see no reason why they shouldn't be. Their toughest game is in Ann Arbor. Penn State's going to be a big one. Notre Dame, they play Notre Dame at home. But the fact that they played a game with this roster puts them ahead of everybody else in college football. That's just my opinion. I don't know. You guys can rebut off that one. What do you have to say, Matt, man? What do you think about that?
No, I think that's I think the spring game, Fred, I think that's sort of spot on. And I agree with you completely on the Big Ten being top heavy. But the top is getting bigger, when you talk about Oregon joining that party, Washington joining that party, and USC. Now you got 6, really good teams year in and year out in that conference out of 18. So it is going to be a more competitive conference. I think SC's schedule, to your point, Fred, maybe a little bit easier right now, especially with what's going on with Michigan. Going to be a new coach, roster turnover. Big House still really a tough place to play. But I think there still needs to be some top-end talent on the defensive side of the ball. I think there are spots with Bear and Reichs, and there's something with Gentry and the linebacker positions. But I don't know if that top-end talent is quite there yet, and also I don't know if there's truly some top-end depth on the defensive side of the ball. So when we look at kind of the notable teams on this schedule, yes, does anyone really scare you? Maybe not, but I think week over week, I think it's going to bring unique challenges, especially when you're navigating a season with injuries, and with different various matchups. And then obviously want to see Miller Moss succeed so much. He will. But to my earlier point, we saw Slovis just get out of the gates like gangbusters. We saw Jackson Dart get out of the gates like gangbusters. We saw JT Daniels get out of the gates like gangbusters. So it's not like this is sort of an unprecedented debut. And then as guys, started having more film where teams could kind of adjust and react, it became kind of a regression to the mean a little bit. So I think there's still some challenges to be able to navigate. But I hear both sides of the coin.
Yeah, definitely. So let's move on for that. And came out in the news, I think yesterday, right? It came out yesterday about Juju.
What is today? My day, I think Tuesday, something like that.
I believe it
this
came
week.
It came out this week. For a little late, we apologize by bringing it to you guys on Friday, but it's something we're talking about, and we have a guest here, the number one source for Trojan Insider, so we might as well talk to him about it. Juju, is his last name Watkins? I want to call
Lewis.
Juju Lewis. I want to call
Juju
Juju
Watkins is the number one women's basketball player.
That's
also
why.
A USC Trojan.
And also, that's why it's stuck in my head. So we'll have 2 Jujus on campus. Juju Lewis decided to reclassify. He's going to come in at class of 2025, which means he has 1 more year of high school football, and he'll come down, which also puts in depth in the quarterback room. Not at the end of the season, but then the next season, right? Going into spring 2020, going to spring. When we say Happy New Year, it'll be going in there. Sorry for all the confusion. I want to say this behind it, and then I'll get El Chicano's reaction to this. I think, and I like this. Don't misinterpret what I'm saying. I like this about this kid, and this is the first thing that I thought. I think the competition made him rush his efforts, if that makes sense. Like, wait a minute. They just signed a guy that's a true freshman from UNLV. That means I'm going to have to sit. I need to go get my starting spot. Now, I need to get to SC as soon as I can. That's a great sign from anybody, because now today's kids will say, I'm a decommit. I'm going to go somewhere else where there is no competition. He's saying, I need to hurry up and get to SC so I can get my starting spot. I don't want to be too far behind the ball. I like that. It creates depth. Doesn't mean that SC does not need to get another quarterback. They may need to get an older guy just in case all hell breaks loose like it did the year with JT Daniels, Keenan Slovis, and Max Barkley and Matt Leinart, when everybody just got hurt that one year and they were all the way down to Ryan playing quarterback. You know what I mean? Like, just to prevent something like that. So I like the effort that he's putting forward. Like, all right, I need to go to SC as soon as possible. I'm reclassifying, and I guarantee he's going to leave early. That's great. We need more of those coming in as recruiting. We need more of that, of guys we're recruiting, instead of guys who's going to chase a dollar. He knows what he has, and he knows he's going to quarterback you. So he's like, I need to get there now. I don't want to be there 2 years behind. I want to become a starter. I'm a competitor. I want to make this my team. I love every bit of this reclassification. I love the fact that he'll be there a year earlier. El Chicano, what do you think about that?
Okay, well, to start with the Juju Lewis thing, I know a lot of USC fans are freaking out right now that he's, they think he's all going to flip to Georgia. And I think it came out today that he's going to visit Colorado, I think Texas, I think Georgia. I might have missed a team on there. Now, if you go back a little bit, right? So since Lincoln Riley, I know he got Jayden Maiava, but before that, he struck out on Dylan Raiola, right? He put all his eggs in that basket. He struck out on him. DJ Lagway, he struck out on him, and I think there might have been another quarterback that he missed out on.
Cam Ward.
Yeah, well, I don't know how serious USC was with him, but okay. And then I was going to say Maiava. Sorry, Jamal, go ahead. I think
Will Howard, perhaps you were thinking.
Okay, Will Howard, right? So we kind of struck out on a couple, and then but you could say whatever. Juju Lewis, he had already had that commitment, okay, but so a lot of USC fans are freaking out that he might leave, and that's a possibility. But I think, in my opinion, it gets tricky because we've seen what happened with Malachi Nelson. These guys don't want to sit. I think Juju's realistically he's gonna end up where he thinks he can take over day one. So if you're Coach Lincoln Riley, it's like, okay, Miller Moss wins a spot. Juju Lewis would come in when Miller Moss would be a senior, I believe, right? So, I mean, I don't think he would mind sitting like that. But if Jayden Maiava wins a spot, he's only a sophomore, and that guy's a stud. I know people right away just think Miller Moss is gonna take that starting spot, but the guy was, I think, freshman of the year in this conference, right? And trust me, that him and his whatever you want to call them, NIL handlers, they didn't go to USC to sit on the bench. I'm not saying he's going to win the job. What I'm saying is that Jayden Maiava and his handlers came to USC with the intention that they think they could beat out Miller Moss straight up. So with the Juju Lewis thing, I think that also plays a factor, is who wins the USC starting quarterback spot. As far as Juju Lewis, man, that guy's a stud. Like, or the kid, should I say. He's a stud. Like, he's a different player than Caleb Williams, but I think he can be that type of quarterback once he gets to college, because that's a guy. It's almost like those are type of kids who they knew from an early age, or they trained at an early age like they were going to be pros. Like, you see Caleb Williams, since he was 6-7 years old, had this crazy training routine. Like, like they know the talent they have, and they put in the work. Like, they know what they could do. They know what they're gonna do. Like, they were almost built for this. The same thing is what Juju Lewis. That's why he reminds me of Caleb Williams, as far as preparation and stuff like that. Like, the guy's gonna come in ready to play. So I think USC's they have to hold on to that commitment. Now, they did offer a player. I'll pass it on right now, but a quarterback from Folsom, but I don't know if he was 26. Yeah. Was he 2026 or 2025 though?
26.
Oh, okay. So I was saying, okay, maybe as a backup, plan B, but no, it's just, I think they probably already knew Juju was gonna, reclassify, but I'll say, he's USC's the place to be if he wants to win a Heisman. I think if he ends up at USC, he'll win a Heisman. No doubt about that. But it's gonna. You got Texas, Georgia, all those teams. In the mix, Colorado. I think you have to. You better hope that USC has their high school NIL money up to par when it's time for him to sign, because that's without a doubt going to play a factor for a player like that.
Colorado's unfortunate because I have my feelings about Colorado, but Texas is weird because Arch Manning is in the wings waiting. You know what I mean? And so I don't know how much better he is than Arch Manning, so that's interesting that he says that. But going back to SC, if Maeva starts this year, he'll be a sophomore and then he'll be a junior, so he'll still sit a year. If Miller Moss starts this year and Miller Moss has a great year, he's going to make his money. So regardless, and then Maeva ends up becoming the starter, and then Juju could come in and compete to be a starter. So regardless, he has the opportunity to compete, and if he'll sit max 1 year. So that's where it gets a little shaky. But I don't know how these kids think, because we don't know why Malachi Nelson left SC, decided to go to Boise, unless he wants free groceries from Albertsons for the rest of his life. That's the only thing I could think of. So I don't really know how that works. Ryan, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I'm super torn on it. And Steven said everything mostly that I've kind of been thinking, but just to kind of double down on it, like best case scenario, it works out perfect for both parties where, you have and this is just thinking of like the actual, not even USC trajectory, but both USC and the actual quarterbacks. You have Miller Moss start this year, ball out, go to the draft. Jaden Maeva takes over in 25 with Juju Lewis coming in. Jaden Maeva starts the whole year. Juju Lewis is his backup, gets to learn and tutor under Lincoln Riley. Maeva balls out, then he goes to the draft. Lewis takes over as a true sophomore, and then it's kind of his show for the next 2 to 3 years. So you basically have the quarterback room solidified for 5+ years of great, great talent. But it's not promised to work that way. I mean, Miller Moss has 2 years eligibility. He could decide to stay 2 more years. Jaden Maeva has 3 to 4 years of eligibility. He could stay that long. And we've seen how these young kids, if they're not getting it right away, I'm not saying Julian Lewis is like that, but there's a chance if he doesn't come in right away and win it, he goes and leaves and then it's, chalked up as whatever people want to talk about. And then the other part of it is, the Sharks are circling, as Steven mentioned. I mean, Georgia is recruiting hard. Alabama, before Nick Saban retired, recruited hard, but Julian Lewis already said that he's interested to see what Kalen DeBoer is like in his recruiting. He knows Steve Sarkisian since he was like 7 years old, he said in an interview. So knows Coach Sark. He's been recruited by Auburn, all his other schools, and he's been very open that he's committed to SC, but his recruitment is still open. So it's definitely, I think, worrisome for Trojan fans that, whether it's NIL money or whether it's a program like Georgia that maybe a Carson Beck has 1 year left and immediately becomes Julian Lewis next year, is much more appetizing than sitting a year at SC behind either Miller Moss or Jaden Maeva. So I think it's okay, but there's definitely all that angst around the situation just because of the way college football is nowadays. In the past, I mean, never again will we see QB rooms like we saw in the past, especially at SC, when you just had guys sitting and waiting and waiting behind Heisman winners and then having their 1 year or 2 years after that. It's just not going to happen like that anymore. And that's just the world of college football that we're in. Hopefully they'll be able to keep that. But I think, like Steven mentioned, that's why Lincoln Riley was in person up in Folsom at that high school football game for that 26 kid, because, knowing Julian Lewis is reclassified in the 25, so that benefits both of them. But also if he ends up decommitting, you have someone else that's, a top 5-star recruit kind of on the back burner coming in. So it's an interesting situation that's going to be wild the next probably 365 days.
Hopefully he's taking trips because he likes the free food and the free flights and all the parties. Jamal, what do you think about it?
Yeah, Steven, it's such a great point about Juju, because I think he becomes the poster child and he becomes the case study in so many ways of how you think about recruiting moving forward. Who would have thought Kyle McCord of Ohio State would have transferred? Who would have thought DJ Uiagalelei would have left, now on his third school at Florida State? Ward, declares the draft, comes back, doesn't sign an agent. And then when you look at the coaching carousel, DeBoer, Fish, obviously the Saban retirement coming out of nowhere. So things come at this sport so fast now that even the conversation about 2025 to me feels a little futile, to be honest with you, because it really begs the question, how much effort, how many calories do you want to spend recruiting a kid 2 years from now? Because at the end of the day, they have so many options at the 11th hour that just wasted time that you could be doing something else as a coach in terms of recruiting other kids or just developing your existing players and trying to get more on the field success. And I think that's really where I think a lot of coaches, Lincoln Riley included, has to think about how do you manage your time, because there's a pro and con here. On the one hand, you could invest all of this time and effort and energy into Juju, and there's an opportunity cost there because you're spending that time with Juju, you're not spending that time on other players, and then he ends up jilting you to go to Georgia or Texas. All that time is lost. On the other hand, if you don't put in the time right now, you don't have that personal connection from a long period of time, and maybe they feel like it's a little bit too much of a transactional relationship and they won't pick you. On the other hand, if you have enough nil and you have a starting spot, does that personal connection even really matter? So I think this Juju recruiting is very interesting, because how much should you be spending time on a recruit more than 1 year away? And I think the next cycle, the next 2 or 3 cycles with nil, with this transfer portal, is I think going to reveal some best practices. To me, look, the bigger question is, forget Juju right now. I think he's going to be a stud, to your point, Steven, to your point, Ryan. Is Lincoln Riley going to be the coach in 2025? Or is he going to be in the NFL by then? So there's all kinds of questions here where this sport comes so fast at you. So I think it's going to be very fascinating. I think Ryan laid out a really ideal situation. They all ball out for a year and they all leave. The chances of that happening probably slim to none. And so you have to really make some tough decisions moving forward. But if I was Lincoln Riley year 3, personally, I'd be focusing more on the guys that are in my room right now with Moss and Maeva, not spending as much time with Juju. Personally, I think he's going to end up going to Georgia. I think that just feels that way, just given his kind of connection and proximity and all of that. But it just brings this larger question to the table of how should I be spending my time as an elite coach when the power now resides so much with the player?
I remember a coach told me the most time you spend recruiting is keeping your players in your system. Like, that's what I remember. He was like, the recruiting's done. Now we got to keep players here through the spring. And that's by keeping them eligible and also keep them from leaving school. So that's actually a real good point, Jamal. So, I mean, it gets interesting, right? Because, and I've talked about this before, like, there's the NCAA just opened Pandora's box with no rules and regulations, and there's no hold on it, right? And they need to finally come in and step in and say, which I saw, and I was kind of glancing at it. I didn't really read it, and I don't know how true it is, but I saw now they're starting to take a look at transfer portal and NIL to see if they could put limitations on it. And everybody's like, well, Nick Saban leaves. Now you want to do something about it. But I'm like, maybe Nick Saban's retirement is what needed to be done in order for this to understand, like, you guys have a wild west out here and it's not controlled. My theory is, and I still think this theory is going to happen, is they're going to bounce and leave the NCAA, and the only NCAA sports is going to be like basketball, baseball, and all that. And basketball is eventually going to bounce. It's just going to be Olympic sports because you're not doing anything about it but collecting the check. So we're just going to create our own and keep our own money and have our own rules and limit this NIL because we don't have anything wrong with it. It's just no limits on it. And we're going to limit this transfer portal thing. When I play, you got one transfer, right? I'm sorry, you transfer, you got to sit out a year. Then they came up with the one-time transfer rule. That's the perfect rule. They should have left it there. You get one time to transfer. If you transfer again, you have to sit out. Why'd they go and mess with it? Because the wrong people started complaining. And that's what happens when you have people making decisions knee-jerk and not really looking into it and trying to appease the masses. You can't appease the masses. You have to keep the masses upset because what I'm doing is best for my brand. Right now, the brand is not great, and there's going to be so many complaints about it. And now you're losing coaches like Nick Saban, and you're probably going to lose another great coach. And I don't know, I'm just throwing names out there. Like Fence is probably next, right? The guy in Iowa, because you can't hold on to these guys because they'll have a great year in Iowa. Next thing you know, somebody offers him $1 million and he's out the door. They can't compete with that. You know what I'm saying?
Fred, it's a really interesting point you bring up. And then El Chicano, I want to ask you a pointed question as the USC insider. It really begs the question, to your point, Fred, the NCAA is kind of this infrastructure that could potentially be holding college football back. We've never been able to make the XFL work because we've thought of it as, just a watered down NFL. But what if the XFL becomes college football? And what if it just becomes the farm system for the NFL? And instead of going to college, you go to the XFL as a high school player. It becomes kind of football's equivalent of the NBA G League. We could be headed for a world like that if the NCAA either A, doesn't put some restrictions around this to kind of keep it collegiate, or B, they just make the wrong choices, which they're most certainly capable of. And so I think it's going to be a really interesting next couple of years. El Chicano, to that point, you're obviously our distinguished guest here. Question for you. Where do you see USC's nil stacking up right now? And how would you kind of rank that in terms of resources? Obviously, it's USC, private school, great history. Jennifer Cohen has come in. She's, got a history of great fundraising. But you also kind of see the world of the SEC, and you see the world of Texas, and you see some of these schools that football is everything in some of these cultures. Where are you seeing kind of USC stack up kind of nil-wise?
I think you just have to look up to, look up across to Oregon and where they have theirs. I know theirs is a little different because they have the Nike money and stuff like that, but there's people saying that the USC is headed in the right direction with NIL, but what does that exactly mean? So I would say, it's been reported USC's, has been, in the past, I guess, so to say, not up to par with the other teams, but is USC ever going to be like a Texas A&M or a Oregon or a Miami? Like that's those are, I guess you want to say, the ones who are spending the most money with NIL, and it's but you see, like, USC does have, the NIL money, because you look at what Bear Alexander or Caleb Williams, like, it seems like they have the money for the top guys, I guess for transfers and stuff like that. But the big question is with high school, can you sustain being a top 20, or what did they finish 18th in high school rankings? I think that's historically USC's top 5, top 10, right? And that could be a direct link to NIL. Is USC ever gonna, do the pay for play? At this point, it doesn't really look like they want to do that, But they say for transfers that they've got the money to pay the transfers. I don't think there's any doubts about that. But high school, I think you have to figure out what you want to do with high school NIL, because I think that's still the foundation of the program. The way I see, like, Georgia and Alabama is that they recruit top 5 classes every single year, right? And they use the transfer portal to supplement what they have on the roster. So I think USC needs to get to that spot. Doesn't seem like they're there yet, but I think ultimately to be, with the elite of the elite, you've got to get top 5, top 10 classes every single year, and that's, most likely that's a direct link towards NIL. And, I do think, when the players get to USC, obviously they're taken care of. Like that's it's been reported, and players are happy. Have you guys ever heard about any players complaining that they're at USC and that they weren't getting taken care of? Like I haven't heard of that. So that's obvious. But you got certain high school kids or players who they're looking for pay for play, and at this point USC doesn't do that. You could say they're taking the cautious approach, because of what has happened with the NCAA in the past, and even FSU, right? They got, I'm not sure what their infraction was, but I think looks like it's headed in the right direction, but they as far as high school, they still have some catching up to do.
I want to and Jamal made this comment a while ago, and Jamal's about how the NIL donation, there's nothing to show for it. And I want to get El Chicano's opinion to it. So Jamal, go by like how it's not like your name on the building and things like that. Talk through that, and let's get El Chicano's reaction to it for NIL. And I think, and I agree with you, Jamal. I think that's the biggest hang up with USC. You know what I mean? So go ahead.
Yeah, El Chicano, what I was saying is, with nil donation, it's very different, right? I mean, when you're talking about what's kind of considered competitive, let's call it $15 million a year, right? 30 players, $500K each, just some round numbers. So you got to kind of find either 15 $1 million donors a year or 30 $500,000 donors a year, right? That's a pretty big number. And it's a little bit different than if I'm donating to cancer research, or I'm donating to social justice, or I'm donating to engineering, or I'm donating to an endowed chair for an academic position. I get my name on things. I get, sort of the benefit of being part of kind of moving a university forward. In some cases in the South, if I do the NIL, I have a bunch of car dealerships. Everyone's going to kind of come buy cars from me because they're like, you helped Alabama and you helped Georgia. And so it's almost like an investment into your business. Or if you're running a big real estate firm, and you're investing in NIL, people will stay at your apartment units. People will come to, the things that you own from a real estate standpoint. So it becomes kind of an investment. Here in Southern California, to get kind of those $31 million, $500,000, 15, $1 million a year donors every year after year, for just the sake of your football team being good, and you're not really getting anything back. That feels like a very different type of money and a very different kind of donor profile. And if you're not a pro athlete, or you're just not a flat out billionaire, it just seems like it's hard to be able to generate the funds to be able to do that specific type of kind of NIL donations. What's your take on that? How do you see that play out? Or am I completely off base here?
I mean, that sounds about right. And you hear things with Jan Cohen and raising funds and stuff like that. Like, from the USC, the NIL people, they're telling people it's going in the right direction with Jan Cohen, and that's a big improvement from Mike Bone. So so if you're kind of saying, does it mean more like in some of those schools? If you're kind of implying that, I mean, I think, there's a lot of USC alum who have obviously have deep pockets. You can't tell me that at a place like, say, Alabama has deeper pockets than a university, or I guess alumni than USC. But some people.
No, I agree with you there, El Chicano. Certainly the deeper pockets at USC, but are there the deeper pockets for football? There's deeper pockets in the film school, and there's deeper pockets in the business school. But just specifically for football, is the donor profile the same at USC than some football crazed places?
Yeah. I mean, that's a good question. That's a good question, and I'm not going to sit here and say I know that answer, but some people would even say that USC has that it's the approach. Some people say that USC is not really willing to or even Lincoln Riley, that they're not really interested in paying high school kids in the, say, pay for play. So some people say, yeah, it's just the approach. I mean, I don't know what your guys' take is on that. That some people say Lincoln Riley is his approach is they're not really interested in paying high school kids. I mean, what do you guys think USC can recruit, let's say, top 5, top 10 classes if they're going to have that approach? What's your guys' take on that?
So, and I think this too. So we have to clarify NIL and the collectives, right? So NIL is Caleb making his money off that commercial, right? Off that sports drink, right? Like legit uses his name, image,
trolleys, new gummy worms. Look at that.
Yeah. So like, if it was me, right? Say it was me coming out of high school right now, I will hustle to get my own NIL, and I will get my NIL in small bits, right? So the Popeyes down the street from the school, put my picture up there, pay me $500 a month, or give me $150 a month, but I get unlimited food, right? I will hustle to get my own NIL. The collective pay, I don't think the collective pay is as much as people think everywhere else, because besides Stanford, SC has the deepest pockets in the former Pac-12, and I think they're up at the top and going into the Big Ten. I think it's like Michigan, SC, Ohio State. Like the rest of them really can't compete. Everybody thinks Oregon has all this money, but the endowment is like almost 2 times Oregon at USC. They just have Phil Knight. What happens when Phil Knight is gone, and let's say the next person of Nike's like, no, I'm not giving the University of Oregon. You know what I mean? If it's not written, I don't have to do it. SC, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jamal, SC has the ability to have 17 big donors, right? They have that ability. Not saying they have it, but they have the ability, right? Give or take about 17.
Yeah, 17 billionaire alumni. Yeah.
So they have the ability to have the right. So Oregon just has Phil Knight. SC has 17, but so it's how much are you willing to give to the collective? Now, I just learned this from my wife because she works in the foundation office. They could donate a amount of money and immediately put it into an account. So let's just say they do raise $50 million. You put that to the account and you let interest hit. They should have did it when NIL first happened, and now they can start paying payers off the interest, and that $50 million is still sitting there. And now you start naming boxes after these people. You name a section after these people. You name a coach's room after these people. And now you can start doing the pay for play. Now, this is where I do have an issue with a pay-for-play for high school because they're so fragile right now. If they don't play, they want to leave instead of sitting up there collecting a monthly stipend and you're getting collective money, and now your picture's on the wall at a AMC movie theater. This is where such and such as USC Trojan comes to play. You get free movies and you get $250 a month. That's where I think it gets finicky with high school people. This is why, because they don't really know. They're guessing and they're hearing rumors and they're like, I want this dollar amount. You know what I mean? So that's where I'm kind of like, it gets finicky. I'm not really with the pay for play for high school because they haven't done it yet. What they fell out. You know what I mean? Jamal, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I totally agree, Fred. And, it's a great point. Number one, 17 billionaire alumni, that's on Fortune and Forbes. A lot of those guys and girls and, males and females, how many of them are diehard football fans? Not as many as you would think. They're out of that 17, the vast majority really are pretty actually impartial to football. So it's interesting there.
The days of Galen.
Sorry?
I said, the days of Galen.
The days of Galen. You and I always kind of talk about that.
Galen would have resolved this right away.
Yeah, no, for sure, Fred. The question here becomes, in terms of pay for play, at what point do you not just behave like Google or Apple or Meta or Microsoft, right? Where they pay top dollar for fresh college graduates, so, software engineers and AI engineers and cybersecurity engineers and all of these folks. There's attrition. People leave to go get other jobs every year, every 2 years, and the attrition just becomes part of their business model. It's not like Facebook and Microsoft and Apple and all of these companies say, hey, we're going to stop hiring from college because they leave every 2 years. It just becomes kind of part of the model, right? And so right now, I think the lack of the pay for play is basically saying we don't want to pay these guys, to that earlier point, because the probability that they're going to stay 3 years in my program or 4 years in my program is so low that I'm basically just giving the money away. Whereas the thinking probably should be is that, look, we're just going to pay everyone from high school in terms of our recruiting class, even if our attrition is 30% or 40% and we get to keep 60 or 70%, that just becomes part of the business model. Because if the 60 or 70% really pan out and we play really well, then guess what? That 30% kind of becomes noise down the line. And so I think that's kind of where some of these programs have to start thinking. This is the world we're in now, where these football departments are much closer to sort of companies, for-profit companies, than they are necessarily as collegiate athletic departments. So I think I understand USC's point of view on the pay for play, but I think unless there is some radical change that is coming from the NCAA, and history being our guide suggests that is not going to be the case, you're probably going to need to get into some sort of pay for play model to illustrate El Chicano's point, where it's, and I completely agree with you, you can't make a living on recruiting classes 18 and 20, and just living off of the transfer portal. You can't build culture. You can't build continuity. You have to be in that top 5, top 7 range, and then use the transfer portal as a supplement. But in order to get that top 5, top 7 range, I think you just have to embrace the attrition.
Yeah. I'm curious to see how Michigan does NIL or their collective or whatever. I wonder if Jim is bought into that. Ryan, what do you think about that?
Yeah,
Not the Michigan thing, the NIL, the collective NIL thing, what we're talking about.
Yeah. No, of course. Just to add something to it, because I think we're all on the same page. Like this will be Jennifer Cohen's first, off season with the program, right? Like she came in August is when she was hired. And so this is like her biggest undertaking is, through the season, the progress we've all heard and all whatnot. But this is now her baby to build and prove and maybe hire and fire a new staff in terms, not necessarily not coaches by any means, but in terms of, GMs or whatever you need. Because if, to me, and this is just my opinion, the coach, which in this case is Lincoln Riley, you have to be on board, obviously, but it shouldn't be the coach's responsibility, like heading the NIL vision. It should be like, hey, I'm for this, but he should say, I want this player, give me the resources to go get him at these top tier programs. Right. And so it's going to be up to Jennifer Cohen and this to be like, okay, how are we going to get those resources to, no matter who we want, we're able to back up that stance. And it's not going to happen every single time. But from what we've seen from like the Oregons and some of these others, kind of it seems like whatever Dan Lanning says, like, hey, I want this guy, Oregon's like, okay, yeah, we'll go get him for you. And so that's what it's going to take, I think, for this program to get to that top tier level in terms of recruiting and transfer portal NIL. And we'll see if they're up to the task, but it's going to take some changes in kind of the front office, quote unquote, if you will. And so, that's what this off season I think looks like and what'll make it really interesting and how we'll define kind of Jennifer Cohen in this new age of NIL as an athletic director with USC.
I'll say something for 10 seconds just to piggyback off of Ryan. It sort of goes back to what Lincoln Riley said, right, in that athletic interview where he said, hell yeah, I'm going to be the coach at USC as long as they keep investing in football.
Right on time, Jamal.
Look at that.
Right on time. Not my first rodeo. Not my first rodeo, Fred.
Right on time, Jamal. I know Ryan. I did this earlier because I know Ryan's getting the wrist taps. So let's get it. Let's go ahead and wrap this up. El Chicano, you got anything for us?
No, just appreciate the invite. Had a good time with you guys, and if you guys ever need me, need a guest or whatever, if you guys thought I, like what I brought to the table, just let me know, hit me on a DM or whatever, and you guys all seem like nice fellas, and I appreciate it. You guys have a good night. Thank you.
Keep doing your thing, El Chicano, and you're a rock star on Twitter, and really appreciate all the knowledge and wisdom you bring, and thanks so much for your time tonight and the partnership here, and you have the red carpet anytime you want to come back to Salute to Troy. So
yes,
really
sir.
Appreciate it, and hopefully next time you're at a game, let us know, and we can all hang out and tailgate together.
Yeah, have a drink or something. I got my handle right there. I'm gonna try to put out some content. It'll be the same channel on YouTube, Chicano Sports TV. Give me a follow, and I should have some videos up here in maybe a day or two. So check it out. Thank you guys.
Your Twitter handle is at Chicano Sports TV.
No, that's the YouTube, and the Twitter is El Chicano USC. But that's the YouTube channel, Chicano Sports TV. I'm trying to get that started. So check it out if you guys get a chance, or subscribe. And I should have a video maybe in a day or two up. I already got some things in the chamber. Just gotta try to upload them. So
yeah, good deal. Hey, so I just want to let this out. Like we're open to all the SC Twitter fans, all the USC YouTube. Like we want to create an open community. Like Trojan, I'm gonna say this because I went to USC and Jamal went to USC. He could agree to me. Trojans are family no matter what, and there's no need for Trojans to be for Trojans, right? If we're all doing this, our whole goal is all for us to eat at the same table, right? We prefer to be at the head of the table, but neither here nor there. We all want to eat at the same table. So, you guys are more than welcome to come on our show. We'll come on your show. We're open arms. We have an open door. We're family. That's why there's no name on the back of the jersey. It's about the logo on the helmet and the SC on the front of the chest. And I've heard that millions of times from every other sports also. So, we're family. You guys are more than welcome to come on, you guys who watch this. Even fans, we'll work something out where if a fan wants to come on, just let us know. We'll work something out. You guys can get a little segment. Have fun with it. So, definitely. El Chicano, I appreciate you. Thank you for coming on. Like Jamal said, you're more than welcome to come back. We had a wonderful time. Ryan, Jamal, we got another one in the books. We did it again. Until Monday, I think, fingers crossed, because it's raining, so nothing may happen. We may finally get to the DVs. We may finally get to the DVs. The DVs may finally happen, so we'll see. Everybody else, thank you for watching. Remember, go to betonline.ag, put in promo code BLEAV, BLEAV, and you receive a 50% promo bonus. If you're watching the divisional round in football, don't forget to go and get you a Stone Brewery Fight On Pale Ale where you fight on. And the most important thing, if you think that Brock Purdy is going to hit the over, which I do think he's going to hit the over, in passing attempts, go to UnderdogFantasy.com, go to the Google Play Store, or go to the App Store and download it. Put in USC LAFB. You get a $100 match. Go do that. It's everything you do over under. If you want to put the Lakers and your favorite NFL team this week with LeBron James, Anthony Davis, you can mix and match and do the Ryan, did I tell you that I did when the basketball and hockey started? I did the Ultimate Four. So I had baseball. I had a baseball one, a basketball one, a hockey one, and I lost though. But we'll try again next time. We'll try again next time. Hey, Chicano, thank you again for joining. Ryan and Jamal, we did it again. Thank you guys for watching. We appreciate all your support. You guys know how it goes. Live free, fight on.